hello out there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I was so busy checking the intake here that I forgot to switch over the banners. So I'm Annette Richmond. This is the Smarter Career and Business Moves LinkedIn Live Show. I'm so excited to be here with my friend Phil Davis. You've been on with me before. We chat all the time, and I'm so excited to have this conversation about networking because it's so important. And we were talking a little bit about that before we, went live. So for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, Annette, it's definitely so good to be back with you. I appreciate you having me on this glorious, beautiful Thursday. I can't believe it's Thursday. It's just crazy, crazy how quickly time goes by. But yeah, so I am Phil Davis. I am the founder and CEO of FulPhillment, which is a holistic one-on-one career coaching and recruiting consultancy company. I've been in business formally for about a year and a half. Just found out last week from doing taxes that we became profitable for the first fiscal year, which is amazing. I was like, okay, what? Like, can I see the numbers again? So, very, very, very excited about that. And I offer, one-on-one holistic career coaching. So I do things in such as like resume reviews, LinkedIn optimization, networking strategy. So I'm glad we're talking about that a little bit today and combining our forces in that area. Interview preparation, confidence boosting, and accountability. So I love what I do. I know you do as well, in what you bring your clients. And yeah, it's just all about helping job seekers and career pivoters to find fulfillment and just to find a little bit of joy along their path, when they're looking for another opportunity in their career. So that's me. That's what I do.
Yeah, I love the idea. You kind of cover the full circle. It's not just like the client or something. It's the whole person. And I know, and I think that's part of why networking is so important. I know it certainly is, to me, and it's something that I talk about with the clients that I work with as well. So,
Mm.
let's just jump right into it. You know, I'm sure you meet people as I do. You're at an event, a networking event, and they're running around and they're passing out their business cards or they're, QR coding people connecting on LinkedIn because they just lost their job. And sometimes I will talk to them and they'll say, well, I don't have time to network because I'm working and I'm so busy. And as we know, that is not the way to look at it. I mean, it's really more of kind of like a lifestyle than something you just do because it's not transactional. And I think that's part
Mm.
of what people hate about networking is they think of it as being transactional. I meet you, I ask you to, help me find a job, you help me find a job, and they're uncomfortable with that, as they should be, I will say. So I'd like to just jump right in here and have you share your thoughts about kind of what networking is and what it should be.
hmm Well, I like to kind of break down the entire the entire word of networking, right? So you have net and then you have working, right? So working, obviously, it takes a lot of work to build community and to build relationships. But then you've got the net part. And to think about the net, like obviously we think about the net as like the internet, like, oh, like we have, LinkedIn, obviously, social media and other like networking organizations that we can kind of be a part of and join that way. So like that, but I think about the net like literally like a spider web, right? So a spider web is very delicately created by the spider when you see one. Like sometimes you'll go outside a house or an apartment or something or a building, and not often you'll see like a big spider web, but it's like literally perfectly symmetrical and it looks like pretty, right? And so that spider, to kind of get an analogy, that spider took a lot of time to make that web perfect so that they could use that web to, get insects, to get food, to be nourished. And so when I think of networking kind of on an analogy perspective, I think about it like literally a spider web analogy, where it's like it's going to take time, but once you have that network strong and powerful, it's going to look really pretty and it's going to help you as well. And so that's kind of a way a symbol or a vision that I see it that way because of my creativity. But then as well, I know we talked a little bit earlier and we talked a lot about how like networking, it may in the beginning seem like it's a transactional element, but it's really, I want folks to think about it being more transformational. So like transformational is greater than transactional because the moment that networking seems like it's just a transactional back and forth, like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Oh, hey, what do you have for me? Oh, hey, what's going on? You know, and it seems kind of like cutthroat and cut and dry. Then there's really no, in my opinion, there's really no like transformation within that relationship, really building it, right? Getting to
Mhm.
learn about the other person, getting to learn about their curiosities, what makes them tick, what excites them, what hobbies do they have, right? So those kind of things that are more about understanding the individual and what they like and what we can learn from each other. Because again, it's all about community,
Mhm.
but also about collaboration, right? I say all the time on LinkedIn, like value for value, support for support. It's not just a one-way street where somebody's supporting somebody else, but they're not getting something back. So I think with networking, it's a lot of those elements in play that can really yield a lot of those transformational results that
Mhm.
comes into networking.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, here I am in my black. I'm feeling a little spiderish right now. So, but that is so true. And it is about getting um, to know the other person. And so I did want to have you, share your thoughts on networking on LinkedIn, because there's different strategies for LinkedIn in person, really, a little bit of different thinking about it. But as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking about what we always say, that you need to be you. You need to be a person on LinkedIn. You don't want to put up a post where you're using, like, 25-cent words when nickel words will do. That was one of the things I learned in college. I had a couple of teachers tell me that, where people are just trying to, I don't know, sound smart or whatever. And they're not really being themselves. And
yeah.
so, if you can share your thoughts about the whole idea of LinkedIn networking and some strategies around that.
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thing that you said that's important is be you. Like that's the thing is like that is the key takeaway, right? Like if anything that comes out of this session that we're chatting about is just be you. Be your authentic self. Like don't I've said this like so many times this week and I don't know why. Like don't change for anybody. Like you are your own unique self. Like for me, for example, like I'm quirky, I'm weird, like I'm all extroverted, I'm all get out, like I'm an opera singer, like whatever. But that's who I am, right? And like not everybody's going to like that, and that's okay. I think it's important to be yourself, and I think a lot of times like when you're starting out with networking, at least for me when I kind of first started out on like LinkedIn, like truly on LinkedIn, even though I had the account back in 2007, 2008, I just had it just because I was looking for work, like whatever. And then, when I got laid off, I was like, well, I'm going to get out there on LinkedIn, but oh, what are people going to think about me? A lot of imposter syndrome came into fruition. And then I'm like, okay, well, I had a lot of supporters and friends like in the beginning say just get out there, make it happen, right? And I did slowly but surely, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to just share my story. And I remember the very first post I did, I had a networking community that I was a part of, and one of the challenges was that person told me, hey, do like a post about how you landed in your career, right? And it was just like, okay, well, I'm going to just write a story about HR and how I landed in there. And then it became like more about, me, the person, and kind of sharing my stories and my experiences of what I'm learning just along my path, whether it's personal or professional. And so, like I did a post a couple days ago about change because a lot of people ask me, hey, well, change is scary and how can I change in my career? And so there was an example I had a couple of months ago where I went to go see family in Milwaukee, but my flight was canceled. So I had to make change and how you deal with it. So I kind of tied in a lot of like personal experiences that we have into content that I feel is helpful for the community. But yeah, being you is key. And it can be tempting, right? Because there are a lot of people out here, LinkedIn influencers, people that are posting, and there's a lot of, I call LinkedIn noise, right? There's over 900 million members or users, I think, on LinkedIn now,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of noise, and it can be tempting to look at posts and say, oh yeah, I want to be like that person, right? I want to like emulate that person, but I'd say, don't overthink it and just be your unique self and share your story and share your experience and share your value, because there will be people out there that will resonate with you and
Mhm.
what you can bring to the table. And I think that's the most important thing. Quality over quantity is key. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is a lot of thing where people worry, people like us, people like you, and people like me say, oh, you should be on LinkedIn and just post and comment and all that stuff. And people are really nervous about what other people think about, what are people going to think about me. And I think that the truth is that um, all the time, and I am certainly guilty of this. I have been, I think we all are to some extent. And when you're worrying about what are people thinking about you, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're
yeah.
thinking about like what they're posting. They're not thinking about you. But one of the things that I want to ask you a little bit more about is the whole idea of, you talked about like personal and professional.
Yeah.
And I heard, and I can never remember who I heard this from. I heard it on Clubhouse, the idea of having professional, personal, and private. And
Mm,
for me, professional obviously is professional. And for me, personal might be, me and my husband at a football game or out having dinner for a holiday, or, pictures of my dogs. I talk a lot about my dogs. And private is something like, for me, now I'm not getting a divorce, but if I were, I would not be talking about it on LinkedIn,
yeah.
because to me, that's something I share with my small group of, friends. But there are a lot of people that do, they talk about, you know, a lot of different things in their personal life. And I am cool with that. So that's not a judgment on that.
Hmm.
But my concern is, I hear sometimes coaches telling people, well, you should be, be vulnerable. You should be sharing those things.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what bothers me. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting, what's interesting is, if I look at myself this year, especially like, so here's kind of like my philosophy, like, and
Uh-huh.
what here's kind of like what I've done, right? So because there are folks out there, like, if you're wanting to get yourself out on LinkedIn, right? I think the best way to start is like, just start commenting on
Hmm.
posts that resonate with you, but don't just say like, oh, I agree or I love it. Like, tell the author, or the author of that post, like, why you agree or why it resonated with you, and you can share like an experience there, and really bring out some good, like, quality commenting first, and
Hmm.
then go into like posting later on down the road. You don't necessarily have to post in the beginning, but if you feel
Hmm.
comfortable, absolutely. But I say, like, my posts that I do now, I'm starting to learn, because it's a continuous learning opportunity. Like, I'm still learning how to do it. Like, you always will be learning how to do content and commenting and stuff. But like, my commenting right now, like, if I find posts that I resonate with, or that, yes, that I disagree with, or that I'm kind of like neutral on, I've started becoming much more bold in my comments
Hmm.
than last year. Like, I've kind of like used my voice a lot more in commenting. Like, if there's something that I feel really passionate about, um, and so some of that vulnerability comes out in commenting, and then like on my posts, I'll bring a little bit. But I love just the private side that you talked about, because it's something that I say a lot on LinkedIn, like, be professional with a personable approach, but then also
Hmm.
show your personality professionally, right?
Yeah.
Right, perception's reality, right? We want to
Mhm.
make sure that when we're getting out on LinkedIn and we're commenting and we're posting, like, there are more eyeballs on our posts, on our comments, than what we realize. Like, people are
Yes.
watching what we're putting out there. So maintaining that composure but still being yourself is key. But I like that private part, because there are a lot of things in my life, that I would never share out on social, because it's part of my own private life, whether there's
Hmm.
stuff going on in my family,
Yeah.
whether there's stuff going on with my friends, and they're saying, hey, Phil, like, don't share on social, stuff like that. So I think that's important, And for those coaches out there that say like, oh yeah, well you should do this, you should do that. I mean, again, right? Let's talk about what a coach is. Whether you're a career coach like us, whether you're a business coach, all a coach is that. Like they're there to coach you and to empower you and to motivate you and to help build your confidence. But
Mhm.
they're not necessarily saying, hey, here's what you should do. Here's what worked out for me. This is what you have to do. Like this is prophecy, right? Like no, like we're here to empower and motivate, encourage. But at the end of the day, what you put out is what you put out, and what you feel comfortable sharing is what you feel comfortable sharing. So I completely resonate with that because um, we're all different, right? And for me, for example, like I have, and I'll share a little bit of vulnerability here right now, actually. So I'm an opera singer, right? I studied college. I studied opera in college. I had a lot of caffeine this morning, so I'm a little hyper. So I'm like, because I have this overnight oats can I have right here. So it's like a mocha oatmeal and it's got caffeine in it. And then I've got my Starbucks coffee, so that has caffeine in it. So I'm like,
Whoa.
whoa, I'm like off the wall. But so yeah, but that's who I am. And so when I a couple there was a comment I remember I put down. There was a post that talked about like not changing for anybody or something when I said that earlier. But it hit me really hard that I put in there like I sometimes I'll put like some singing videos out there like on my page, like inspirational like music videos of me singing opera and stuff like that. And I had a really close connection when I first did that stuff in the beginning. I had a close friend of mine say on a private message like, Phil, why are you doing that music stuff? Is that getting you any leads? Are you getting clients off that? Like, that just seems a little wacky. And you know what I told him? I said, that's who I am, and people love it. And all the people that are in my inner circle that saw those music videos of me singing, they're like, do more of that. That's unique to you and that's
Yeah,
unique to your brand. Like,
yeah,
dude,
yeah.
that's awesome. So I'd say like if there's something that you want to do that's different, but that's your unique self, like go for it. Like make it happen. Like because again, people will resonate and people will be in your corner, and the ones that resonate with you and those that like support you, those are the folks that matter. And the trolls and the people out there that are like, oh, why would you do that? Like, oh, that's crazy, or oh, the ones that try to take away our energy and try to steer us off course or our vision, like just ignore those people. Like block them on LinkedIn. I block so many people now. Like I tell people no. It's just you have to set boundaries, and it can be intimidating in the beginning, but as you continue to do so, I mean, just you know, audit your LinkedIn network too. I think that's also important. Like I do an audit now every month. Once a month, I'll look at my connection list and I'll say, all right, are there people on here that are just here, or are there people in my network that are actually here,
Mhm.
supporting, engaging, things like that. So
So I just want to take a minute and say hello to some of our friends in the audience,
yeah.
and Jeff Young, who is a frequent guest on my show. He's so much fun, and he says that he loved our previous conversation about professional, personal, and private. We each have to decide how much of each is right for us.
Oh
And
yeah.
I do talk about this a lot. I kind of talk about it when I get a chance because it's one of the things that I am very sort of passionate about. And I want to say hello to our friend Seb also, and he defines it as social versus personal versus private. So
Oh yeah.
thank you both for being here. And I see that you are all, talking in the comments. So I always love to see that. I do a lot of that myself when I go on people I know when I go on their LinkedIn live shows that I'm talking to other people in the comments. And it is, and I wouldn't, I don't want to go into this too much, but I feel like that. And I try to, for years on LinkedIn, I was like, never ever said anything remotely political.
Yeah.
And this last year or so, occasionally when something really happens that is very personal to me, like a school shooting, because we had the Sandy Hook is like 30 minutes
Mhm.
from where I live. I know people that live up in
Mhm.
that area.
Mhm.
Then I will post about it on LinkedIn because it is so important to me. And it's not me ranting and raving. It's, sharing stats and things like that. But
Mhm.
but like you, I feel that if somebody sees that and they know that like I support gun control and they don't want to hire me because of that, well, I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that. I don't,
Mhm.
I'm not worried about it. anymore. So I want to, and we've been talking obviously a lot about LinkedIn, but can you share some strategies for someone who is, they're looking for a job, or
Hmm.
they're working and they realize they hear this and say, oh, I should be doing that. What are
Absolutely.
strategies just for even like finding people that you want to have know you? Because you always hear that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And
Hmm.
in my mind, it's who knows you, really. It's who's going
Hmm.
to think of you when something comes up for you. So, what are your thoughts on that? And can you give us some tips?
Yes. Who knows? Who knows you? I love that because again, it's people. When I think of that, like people will remember you if you do it the right way. So, like for example, right, like if you're going out to a networking event, like in-person networking event, which is happening more and more now that COVID is starting to
Mm-hmm.
die down, and there's a lot more on-site networking and stuff like that, and even social networking on LinkedIn. Um, when you're getting to know people, right? The first thing you should do is get to know people, like get to know that person, right? Like, and that's either like at a networking event, what are we doing? We're networking, we're getting to know other people and who they are, right? Who they are, number one, two, what they do, and three, what makes them unique, right? Personally, professionally, socially, and things like that. I love socially that he said earlier. That's
Yeah, I
incredible.
like that
That he said.
too.
That's because again, networking is all there's a social element of it because
Mm-hmm.
you're getting to establish relationships, and within those relationships they may be personal, they may be professional, they may be both. They may be just friendship, friendship connections. But and that's the thing, like when I work with people as clients, within my business, like every single one of them just naturally become my friend, and it's just like that's 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 so powerful because is it business? Yes. And networking can be like, a business event, but really beyond that, it's humans interacting with each other. And so I think if we think about it that way versus like, hey, I'm Phil, I need a job, help me out. I'm like, well, let's take a step back, right? And I say this both on socially and in a networking event, right? Like if I had somebody that said, hey, at a in-person event, they say like, hey, I'm so and so, help me find a job. I'm like, well, I don't even know who you are, so I want to understand who you are, what you're all about, what value you bring, and what do you love to do, what excites you, what ticks you. So I'm also a question, I ask a lot of questions because the recruiter in me, that kind of stuff, I love to like really dig deep into other people and like understand their strengths and then utilize that into my programs and stuff. But I think that's important because you want people to remember you, but you don't want to force that remembrance. You want to make it all organic and natural versus like, hey, remember me, like I'm Phil, like hey, yeah, like remember me, like come on, please, please, please remember me, like it's okay, come on, please, please, like just take a step back, just chat and get to collaborate. And I think doing those things versus asking for the order up front will be helpful because ask for the order later on. Like once you feel like you've got a good, comfortable relationship, then ask for the order, right? See what
Mm-hmm.
they need help with because I think it's also important too, whether you're on LinkedIn or whether you're doing a networking event, professionally, personally, etc., in person, getting to know that person. And I always love to ask at the end of like networking events, well, how can I help, right? Or where do we go from here? Or let me know if there's anything I can assist you with. Once I've got that established and maintained connection, I think that's important because again, support for support, value for value. It's a two-way street when you network. You know, and sometimes I'll ask the question, "What's in it for me?" I know Leah Turner, I think yesterday or day before, she did an Instagram post, I think, around like asking, well, what's in it for me, right? So every time there's a connection that reaches out to her, I think her story was all about, well, if you're reaching out asking me for something, what's in it for me? Is it monetary if I'm going to do business for you? Is it
Mm-hmm.
a recommendation? That kind of stuff. And I've started asking that question a lot more myself, right? If I got people that reach out, I'm like, well, what's this connection in what's in it for me? Like, am I going to get a good like a good connection with this person, or am I going to be able to help them out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those kind of questions are important to do as well. But then also, I think the biggest thing is, we can't know everybody, right? Like there are so many people out in the world and stuff. And so when we think about the word community and networking, think small. Like don't think huge because oh, you're like, oh, I got to know hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Like get to know, like you said earlier, Annette, like a smaller like inner circle of community folks, like people that you can call like whenever you need them. Like so, I've got
Mhm.
a good 10 people out in my inner circle, like on a sticky note in my phone. And if anything happens, or if anything happens to them, we're all here to chat, to, talk to each other, online or offline and things like that. I think that community is very, very, very important
Mhm. Mhm.
to have. So,
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I am lucky to have several people. It's a smaller group of people that I chat with like regularly on, on LinkedIn or Facebook Messenger or something, and then of course we have FaceTime or Zoom calls or, periodically to chat face to face. And it's so important to have those people in your life. And before I ask you sort of we're getting towards, it goes by so fast. We're getting towards the end. um, I am curious about your thoughts on letting people know what you want. And I think that's true. If you're looking for a job, I'm sure you have people, they're looking for a job and they go, oh, keep your eyes open for me. And it's like, okay, for what? So you want to be very specific. Like I'm looking for a director of marketing at a, PR firm or whatever it is, small to mid-size. But I think that's also important for people like us. Now, I have told people close to me and sort of my circle that like I am looking to do say more speaking this year. And so I have actually had somebody's looking for somebody and they think of me. And it's because you do have to let people know what you're looking for.
yeah. Yeah, it all starts, and I've got a introductory, like back in January, February, I think, I launched my very first like online introductory job seeking masterclass.
Mm-hmm.
It's an online course, and it helps those job seekers, like if they're stuck in their career, like or they're stuck in their job search, excuse me, how they can kind of get some motivation and fulfillment to get some momentum going, right? So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like cause effect things. And one of the things I talk about is it all begins with mindset. So how we're thinking up here, how we want to network,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can't just go out there and act, like we can't just it's like the application stuff. Like we're applying to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of jobs and we're applying to all different opportunities and we're just kind of like putting paint on the wall, right? We're hoping that paint, yeah, like the paint on the wall will stick and it will
Yeah.
dry and we'll be like, boom, that's the job I'm going to interview for. It could be a marketing job, HR job, whatever. So if we take that step back and we really reflect and we really think about our mindset, our positive mindset, and again going back to us as ourselves, like what excites us, what kinds of things have we done in our career that we enjoy doing, what are things that we're like, and I can deal with it but I don't like it, and then what are some things we're like, oh, I just hate, right? So like taking that self-reflection and really starting to think about those things is key, because then I think if you have a good positive mindset and you find some clarity, that's kind of like my next step, really finding out in clarity terms what you're looking for, what kind of role you're looking for, what kind of company you're looking for, what kind of culture you want to get into, what kind of manager you want to work with, like those kind of elements. Then you can start acting upon those things. So I think a lot of it takes self-reflection, and a lot of clarity before you ask for the order. So like when I get kind of that message where it's like, help me find a job, then I'm having to be the one as the recruiter going back and understanding, well, what kind of job are you looking for? Like what kind of manager are you looking for? So really it will be more beneficial if you, the job seeker, dig deep into
Mhm.
those areas first, and then, hey, I'm looking for a product manager role with a SaaS company that's high growth, 100 employees in the tech industry. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
huge.
yeah, exactly. I say this to the clients that I work with too. If I'm working on their resume and I'm asking them to give me a lot of information, and I always think of Jerry Maguire when they go, "Help me, help you," and it's so true. You shouldn't put the burden on somebody that you want to help you to figure out what you want. And so I'm glad that sort of came up in our conversation. So this has flown by. We are at actually like the 30-minute mark. And before we go though, I'd like you to just share, we've
Yeah,
talked about a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Um, something that you think that, you'd like to say that we haven't talked about, whatever that is that you think is good to share for people listening on the replay, or later on my podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, the biggest thing is I'd say the biggest takeaway with, and you said this so perfectly earlier on, is networking. It's a continuous circle. It never stops at all, right? And what's so important is, even if you are in a job now that you enjoy, that you love, that you appreciate, still continue to network. I really talk a lot with my clients. I talk a lot about like time blocking and really finding different ways in the day or in the week to actually go out there and network. Of course, don't do it like during business hours, like if you're expected to work, obviously, right? That's big. But like take and networking. See, I'm on here. I'm on LinkedIn daily, often like for business, but I'm really more on LinkedIn now for the networking component because a lot of my clients are now I'm getting clients through referrals, which is great. Locally, which is kind of interesting. A lot more local clients I'm getting, but when it comes to networking, like just take start small, right? You don't have to network every single day. Take every other day, a couple days a week. Get on LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn account for 20-30 minutes, right? Go to your feed, start finding people that again, that they've got posts out there that you resonate with. I also think too, if you've got a list of target companies that you're looking at, like for example, some of my target companies as a job seeker would be like Chick-fil-A, Delta, General Electric, organizations like that. So usually during a couple hours during the day, usually in the morning time for me, I'll go look at those company pages and see what they're talking about and start connecting with like recruiters and hiring managers, organically that way. But I
Mhm.
won't go say, "Hey, help me find a job." I'll say, if I found an opportunity at General Electric for talent acquisition, for example, that's interesting, I will first apply to that job and then I'll try to find that recruiter or hiring manager working on that job and I'll contact them and say, "Hey, I'm Phil Davis. I saw this awesome talent act opportunity you're working on. Just want to let you know I applied to the position. I understand you're very busy because you've got a lot of, things on your plate. I'd love to potentially chat for, 5 minutes and just learn a little bit more about what you're looking for and see how I can help." But again, making it about the other person is key, right? Instead of saying,
Mhm.
"Help me find a job." Oh, help me find something that's interesting. Like make it about them, right? And understanding how you, excuse me, can help that person. Because again, it's all about that support and all about that service. And I think starting to think about others instead of self and putting others first in acts of service, will have folks remember you. So I think that's the key. That's what I would say.
Well, I love it. And so, where can people find you? Obviously, LinkedIn
Mhm.
and elsewhere. Your website.
Absolutely. So, if you type in the word fulfillment, FulPhillment, on Google, you'll find my business page there. If you go to fulfillment.com, I got my website there. LinkedIn's the best way. I'm here all the time. LinkedIn.com/in/Phil hyphen the hyphen recruiter. I'm here all the time, and I'm always open to messaging and chatting with folks on the DMs and LinkedIn and stuff like that. So I'm an open book, very transparent, and I'll tell you how it is. So I'm here for it, totally.
Well, I thank you so much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you. And I just want to say thank you
Yeah,
to Seb and Jeff, who have been hanging out with us this whole time, and happily chatting away with each other in the comments. So, that is always a treat to see that happen. So thank you so much for being here. And I will be back next week at the same time and the same channel. And for everyone out there, have a great rest of your day.